never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Can someone please tell me why the liberal media and the left are so obsessed with creating drama that's never there? I mean, is it like a prerequisite to be a total drama queen in order to run for office as a Democrat? Between Cuomo's Emmy and now AOC's awful audition for the starring role in the Capitol building horror show, I'm starting to think this is the Dems' MO. And it doesn't just stop with these two. I can't even get through a Nancy Pelosi press release without wanting to absolutely gag myself. Do the Democrats really buy this stuff? Or do they know it's all BS, but are secretly choosing to turn a blind eye? At least with Donald Trump and Kayleigh McEnany, you knew what you were going to get. Sure, they may have been a bit harsh, but they were real. They didn't feel the need to go Mach 5 on the irrational scale every single time they wanted to get their point across or make a situation look a million times worse than it really was. But leave it to AOC to get the country all wound up over an incident that she wasn't even a part of. According to Nancy Mace, South Carolina Congresswoman, Republican of course, to set the record straight and call out AOC's BS story. Nice try, Cortez. Busted once again. Let's over to YouTube, and I'll bring you up to speed on AOC's Hollywood audition before we move on to the catfight we find these two congresswomen in.
As for myself, I had a pretty traumatizing event happen to me. And I do not know if I can even disclose the full details of that event due to security concerns, but I can tell you that I had a very close encounter where I thought I was going to die. And you have all of those thoughts where, you know, at the end of your life, and all of these thoughts come rushing to you. And that's what happened to a lot of us on Wednesday. And I thought I did not know if I was going to make it to the end of that day alive. And not just in a general sense, but also in a very, very specific sense. Wednesday was an extremely traumatizing event. And it is not an exaggeration to say that many, many members of the House were nearly assassinated. It's just not an exaggeration to say that at all. We were very lucky that things happened within certain minutes that allowed members to escape the House floor unharmed. But many of us nearly and narrowly escaped death. And it's also extremely traumatizing. And what was also traumatizing was how unsettling that day was, because there was a sense that something was wrong. And obviously with the violence, but there was a sense that something was wrong from the inside.
So as we can see here, AOC continues to go on and on and on about how she was fearful for her life and how they all were fearful for her life. And then she goes on to say, it's not an exaggeration. You're right, AOC. It wasn't an exaggeration. It was an outright lie. That story she just told you was a lie. None of it even happened. She went on to her Instagram account to go live to tens of millions of people across the country to straight up tell you all a story that didn't even exist. How do we know this? Well, because Nancy Mace, South Carolina Congresswoman, who was 2 doors down to her office in a completely separate building, was there to witness alongside AOC exactly what happened. Let's head over to Fox News and we'll listen to Sean Hannity question Nancy Mace to get
the Novatech was born. The small device improves Wi-Fi speed and range drastically.
So here's what really happened.
Joining us to react to that, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Nancy, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me on this evening.
There's a band called 3 Doors Down, so we'll say you're 2 doors down. I guess
2 doors down.
Okay. Now, she was claiming that they were banging on the door. Where is she? Where is she? They were screaming loudly in the halls. I would imagine if you were there at the time, did you see and hear that?
No, and the Capitol Police were there to protect us, because the only thing protecting us between us and the violent rioters on Capitol, at the Capitol Dome, which is a 7 to 10 minute walk away in the tunnels under the Capitol, quite far actually, were the Capitol Police. So they were there to protect us and evacuate us. There were 2 threats, one at the Democratic headquarters and one at the Republican headquarters. There were 2 pipe bombs discovered there that day. And thank goodness our police were there to protect us, and they were there to evacuate us not once but twice that afternoon.
Okay, so now I understand the 2 buildings are actually connected underground. What did you say? It was a 10-minute walk?
It's a 7 to 10 minute walk. And if you walk fast, you can probably get there in 5 or 6 minutes. But it is a hike. And at one point during this entire event, I was stuck under the tunnels. I mean, this was a traumatic experience, and I'm not going to discount that for anyone that lived through that day. It was a very harrowing experience. But we have to separate fact from fiction. And the facts are there was no violent mob in the hallways. The folks who were there to riot weren't in the Cannon office building. And so we have to be very clear and not exaggerate this experience or take advantage of it and politicize it in any way, shape, or form. And that was my entire point, is just to be truthful about it.
You actually said that the problem with her story is that the rioters didn't storm the building in question. Insurrectionists never stormed our hallway.
Did we ever near us? Mm-hmm.
Sorry, say that?
They didn't get anywhere near us.
Okay.
Did they in Cannon office building.
So they weren't anywhere in the hall. There was no yelling in the hall. There was nobody banging on anything in the hall. And there was a strong police presence in the hall where you were, which I'm sure probably was comforting, knowing, I mean, I don't think anybody would want to live through anything like that.
No, and you would never want to go through what we went through, and I'm not going to discount those feelings at all. This was a very traumatic and harrowing day. It was a dark day in our nation's history, but we have to be truthful when we share our stories and our experiences, because we want everyone to understand what we went through and believe us when we talk about it. But when you exaggerate it and are dishonest about how you represent what actually happened, it waters down everyone's trauma and their experience. I've been very vocal about the experiences of that day.
You know, it's a big difference if they were outside your door and basically saying they were coming for her, you know, right. and they're out there shouting, where is she, where is she? And if they're not in the building and they're not in the hall and the police are in the hall, and I'm sure the police were calmly guiding everybody and protecting everybody in that process. Not anything anybody wants to go through,
No.
but certainly the story she's telling then, you're saying is absolutely not true.
It's not true, and I simply made that statement of fact earlier today, and she literally lost it on her favorite social media platform, Twitter. And so I know I'm doing the right thing, doing the right job when I've got members of the squad coming after me all day long on Twitter. And, you know, as the old adage goes, Sean, judge a woman by the enemies she keeps, and I'm totally fine with that. This was a terrible and awful experience, but we have to separate truth and fact from fiction when we share our experiences about this. It's very important to make that very clear in this instance.
So as we can see here, Nancy Mace, South Carolina Congresswoman, just busted AOC for all of the lies. She was 2 doors down from AOC in a completely separate building while AOC claimed they were hunting her down. So let's break this down for a second. Let's just highlight how outrageous of a lie this whole thing was for more liberal attention, more Democratic drama that the left constantly seek. They are a very manipulative bunch. If you haven't already assessed or figured that out on your own, let me be the first to tell you, they are a very manipulative bunch. They lie, they over-exaggerate to try to get or fool the American people into buying into their fictional stories. And this was another fictional story brought to you by AOC and endorsed by the left. Nancy very clearly stated it was a 7 to 10 minute walk away. It wasn't even the same building. AOC wasn't even in the Capitol building. It was a completely separate building, separated by tunnels, 7 to 10 minutes away. AOC said she heard the insurrectionists screaming, "Where is she? Where is she?" This is what she said. In a minute, we'll explain, or I'll tell you how she tried to cover that up by doubling down on her lies. So AOC's claiming that they're screaming. The insurrections are outside her door, screaming, "Where is she? Where is she?" But she's in a completely separate building, so that definitely didn't happen. There were no violent mobs in the hallway. And Nancy Mace is just saying, listen, just tell the truth. It's okay if you were scared that day. We were all scared. And Nancy Mace isn't discrediting the situation. She made it very clear. I'm not discounting what happened today. But we do need to tell the American people fact from fiction. Nancy Mace said they weren't even anywhere near it. They were both in their offices, 2 doors down from each other. But here we are, the liberals politicizing this event once again to create more drama, to fool the American people. How stupid do they think we are? Or at least, how stupid do they think half the country is? Because the right doesn't really tend to buy into this over-exaggerated drama as much as some of our political counterparts do, sadly. We tend to do a little bit more research to dig through and uncover truth. So we tend to sort fiction from reality a little bit quicker. Maybe it's in our Republican blood. So how does AOC cover this whole thing up? I just showed you a video of AOC claiming the insurrectionists were right outside of her door screaming, "Where is she? Where is she?" AOC says, "I was fearful for my life. I was scared to death. I thought they were going to assassinate us." Nancy Mace says, no, none of that happened, actually. You're lying because I was right there with you in a completely separate building, 7 to 10 minutes walk away. So AOC gets busted. What does she do to try to get out of it? How do you even get out of this situation? I mean, you're so deep in lies here. To me, you'd think it'd be almost impossible to get out of it. So let's take a look and listen to AOC double down on her lies. So according to Fox News article, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Friday doubled down on her terrifying experience during the deadly Capitol riot after detractors, Nancy Mace, accused her of exaggerating the level of danger she felt. That's a polite way of saying straight up lied. So again, during the live stream, AOC explained that she was in her office. So this is how she covers it up. She goes back online to say, well, hold on a second. What I really meant was this. I was in my office in the Cannon building. Oh, now you're in the Cannon building. How conveniently you failed to mention that you were in a completely separate building. So now she's gone back and she said, well, actually, I was in the Cannon building, okay, which is part of the Capitol complex. I mean, a complex could be miles wide in all directions. So now it goes from I was in the Capitol building to the Cannon building, which is part of the Capitol complex. Okay? And is connected to the main dome building by tunnels. When a mob of Trump supporters breached the main Capitol building, where were all these facts then, AOC? How come all of a sudden you're painting us a very clear now accurate picture, but only after you got busted. The Cannon building was also evacuated that day. Well, yeah, understandably, they probably wanted to get all of the politicians out just for safety measures. So here's where the lie gets hilarious. AOC recalled hiding in her bathroom, because remember in her original lie, she told her viewers and her audience that the insurrectionists were outside my door screaming, "Where is she? Where is she?" So explain that one, AOC, because we all know they weren't. You were in a different building. No insurrectionists were even close to your building, let alone in your hallway. So how do you explain that one? Well, she goes on to say she recalled hiding in her office bathroom and thinking she was going to die when someone entered and shouted, "Where is she?" The man turned out to be Capitol Police. So it wasn't a mob of insurrectionists. It was the Capitol Police saying, "Where's AOC?" I doubt she mistook a Capitol Police for an insurrectionist, because I doubt a Capitol policeman would be sitting there screaming, "Where is she?" No, she's probably like, "Where's AOC? Did anybody see AOC?" And then AOC, hiding behind her little couch, would have probably said, "Yeah, I'm here." Okay, and then they quietly and calmly walked away. Notice how the story is so vastly different now. So she claims she mistook a Capitol Police screaming, "Where is she?" as an insurrectionist. And this is where AOC continues to dig herself a deeper hole, where she continues to double down on her lies. So she then goes on to say, the Capitol Police officer who had not identified himself, well, you'd think the uniform and the badge and, like, you know, my little Capitol Police hat would have been a dead giveaway, but AOC was confused. He didn't identify himself. So, okay, she was confused and she didn't know. I didn't know if he was here to help us or hurt us. One man saying, "Hey, AOC, we should probably get out of here," wouldn't have been a confusing moment to me. So I find it very hard to believe that she didn't know whether he was there to help or hurt her. So clearly critics accused AOC of lying about the details of her experience. So the whole thing was just one big lie. The whole thing was a lie. When do we remove AOC from her committee assignments for lying or coming up with fictional stories to try to fool the American people? When do we give AOC the same harsh treatment that we just gave to Marjorie Taylor Greene? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican, Representative, Georgia, was just given the axe from 2 committees for her opinions and her views on some QAnon reports, and because she supported vocally Donald Trump in backing the election fraud. She was doing nothing but voicing her opinions on the situation. And she just got removed and raked through the coals for voicing her opinions, for exercising her freedom of speech. And AOC just got busted for straight up lying about a situation that never even remotely came close to happening to her. And I don't see any Republican screaming for AOC's head. I want to see those hearings start now against AOC for what she just did. The same exact way that we just raked Marjorie Taylor Greene through the coals, I want to see AOC also be tried for her complete and utter absolute nonsense of a story she just told. Because it has to work both ways. When do we impeach Ilhan Omar for her systemic affiliations, for what she's had to say on Twitter in the past, which was far worse than Marjorie Taylor Greene? I don't see anybody going after Ilhan Omar for her affiliations and her ties So what she said in the past, why do the rules not apply to both sides? It continues to go on, and it's so blatant. And I've been here on this show screaming about it, incident after incident after incident. And for those of you who follow and show up to most of these shows, this has got to be like the 30th show where we've called out the hypocrisy. The whole show is built around calling out the hypocrisy of the left. There is a pattern here, and it's getting worse. The Republicans are letting the left walk all over us. It continues to become increasingly frustrating, and we don't see anybody really putting their foot down. All we see is more and more Republicans backing the Democrat nonsense instead of chastising it. Hence the reason we no longer feel that Mitch McConnell is necessary. Hence the reason we want a lot of the older Republican leaders to take a hike, get the new ones in who are going to fight. We need the Marjorie Taylor Greens to fight for us. That is who the Republican Party wants. We don't need Republicans voting against Republicans who simply wanted to exercise their freedom of speech. And yesterday, we just saw a handful of them, 3 in New York State, turn against Marjorie Taylor Greene. 3 in this extremely liberal state. So I'm not surprised at all. I was surprised by seeing 3 Republicans turn on Marjorie Taylor Greene in Florida, just one state south. That I was quite surprised with, I won't lie. So the double standards continue. AOC has completely lied about the situation to just cater to her base, who ate it up. Every last letter or word of her emotional and irrational drama, they ate it up as they always do. When are the Democrats going to wake up and think, you know what? I'm kind of sick of being lied to. I'm sick of being taken for a fool. So AOC lies. Nancy Mace calls her out. We know the real story. AOC doubles down, digs herself an even further hole, lies about it some more, and nobody goes after her for it. Let's take a look at what the American people have to say over at the Keyboard Warrior Cam about the insanity and the continued lies brought to you by the left. So, Representative Nancy Mace sets the record straight after Rep. AOC tells her version, fictional version, of the January 6th events. Bonnie says, you know what a harrowing experience is? Violence and rioting in the cities where innocent lives were taken and businesses were looted and burned. Why wasn't Congress stepping up and talking about BLM and Antifa all last summer? Where was AOC then? Oh, she was doing quite the opposite and encouraging it. But my goodness, when it happens to them, they were in fear for their lives. And telling flat out lies. These people are terrible. Where was AOC during all the riots? Why wasn't she telling about her horrific story then? Oh, because she was right alongside them, probably throwing bricks through buildings, encouraging it, promoting it. Along with Kamala Harris and other Democratic politicians who seem to condone the violence. We didn't hear about how terrifying of a situation was. And notice, and here's where I have a lot of respect for the Republican Party, although it annoys me that they don't fight back harder. But we didn't see the Republicans crying about it for months and months and months. Who sat there and cried about it and came up with a whole load of drama and over-exaggerated BS to shame the left? I don't know many at all. But one insurrection act, one little ounce or hour of chaos, and we have not heard them stop crying about it. I mean, look how much they've pounced on this issue and beat this horse to death. And they still are calling for Trump and his impeachment. They won't let it go. I swear these guys are obsessed with Trump. Because since Trump's been gone, all we heard is Trump, Trump, Trump from the left. The obsession continues. So we didn't hear anything from the Republicans all summer. They bit their tongue. They were quiet about the situation. They didn't want to get wrapped up in the drama because they're not seeking attention. They're not attention-grabbing, politicizing liberals like the left are. It's like there always has to be a dramatic moment on the left. You look at Nancy Pelosi, and she can't even get through a speech without trying to drum up tears. Chuck Schumer's the same way. You listen to these guys talk, and it's like, Jesus, are we auditioning for a Hollywood drama? It's embarrassing. It's just, I can't even get through it. I want to gag myself. Let's take a look at some other comments here in the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what other Americans have to say about the insanity and AOC's devious lies against the American people. Curtis says, Democrat politicians always exaggerate when it comes to tell their lies. There isn't one of them is going to tell the real story. Why isn't the real new media look good at those videos at the Capitol incident? That guy with the Viking helmet is a member of Antifa. He isn't a Proud Boy or an American patriot. There's a couple videos of Antifa and BLM with him and them wearing that same helmet and has the same tattoos. He's right. Where's the media? Why didn't the media show pictures of the Viking or the furry man with the helmet on? Why didn't they show pictures of him at Antifa events or BLM events? They failed to include all that in their story, in their lies to the American people. So the left-wing media's in on it too. The whole thing is just one big collusion to try to fool the American people, which is why Fox News spends every ounce of their day calling out the hypocrisy. Somebody's got to. Now you've got Newsmax joining the bandwagon, fortunately. And a boatload of conservative talk shows. That's why so many are creeping up to go up against CNN and all the other sneaky left-wing media outlets that aren't going to tell you the whole story. They're just going to give you the story that they want you to buy into. Steve Clement says AOC, and we can't forget the other three, need the schools to stay closed. Think about it. Keep the schools closed. Our children get dumber. That's their goal. Dumb people, the more the merrier. It has to be their plan. Because if you voted for any of those four people, go back to school because you're dumb. Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying all the Democrats are dumb. I mean, there's some very, very smart and educated Democrats. I have a lot of friends who are very educated and smart. I just criticize them a little bit for buying into the media without doing their own initial research. I think there's dumb people on both sides and there's smart people on both sides. But, you know, I do think that the left-wing media and the left-wing politicians do take the American people for fools at times, and shame on the American people for buying into it. We have a choice. We can do our own research, or we can just sit there and get fooled by the media. It's up to you. Kat says, AOC, you sound very immature for a representative. You sound like a 16-year-old girl in high school telling her friends an embellished half-truth story. Just because you want to think this, just because you want to be the center of attention. And she's right. I was thinking the same exact thing. Listening to her tell that story, it was like listening to my like 16-year-old niece. Who am I listening to? A high school kid or a representative, a congresswoman? She doesn't sound like a congresswoman. She sounds like an Instagram influencer who's seeking attention and wants to parade around her home with different outfits to try to get more views. That's all that she looked like to me. She doesn't sound like a mature congresswoman. So I'm not sure exactly who voted for her or if she'll be reelected. But right now, she does not sound like a role model politician that this country needs right now, desperately. Think, people, is this who you want representing Americans? I think not. So the lies are being called out. Lori says, drama queen. Agree. She is a disgrace to Congress. She's clearly wanting to be an actress and bring attention to herself and further divide the country. Shame on you. She's a spoiled brat. We can go on and on and on, but I think you guys get the point. The American people did not buy this story. So we have Nancy Mace calling it all out. AOC doubling down on the terrifying Capitol riot experience. And she then comes out to say, well, wait, hold on. There was a reason I sat on my story. Why? Why is that? Why'd you sit on your story? And then she continues to tell us that sexual harassment played a role in it. She goes on to say that the New York Democrat faced days of backlash after recounting her story during an emotional Instagram live broadcast Monday night, during which she also revealed that she's a survivor of sexual assault. Now, obviously, I have no idea whether this story's true. I won't even comment on that. But this is the reason that she decided to sit on her story and not come out with the truth. Because all of a sudden, emotions of sexual harassment all come drumming up, and it maybe threw her off. I don't know. The whole thing just seems a little bit nonsensical to me. I just don't buy any of it. I'm not sure what part of anything that comes out of AOC's mouth right now is the truth. She clearly lied. She even tweeted, as the Capitol complex was stormed and people were being killed, none of us knew in the moment what areas were compromised. AOC tweeted, you previously told reporters yourself that you barricaded in your office afraid of you'd be hurt. So she's trying to go back on herself. She's trying to go back on the original story. It's complete nonsense. She didn't get away with it. She got busted. But like I said, this is what the left do. They try to create drama that's just not there. That's their MO. But what frustrates us, what really makes our skin boil, is the fact that the same treatment is not being done to the left. The same punishments are not being awarded to the left that are given to the right. And that's where I have a big problem with this entire thing. Like I said, we just saw Marjorie Taylor Greene get raked through the coals for voicing her opinions and exercising her freedom of speech. Yet AOC straight up lies, tries to fool the American people, claims she almost died when there wasn't even a single insurrectionist anywhere near her hall. So complete lies. Let's go back to the keyboard warrior cam and see what others have to say about the insanity, and now AOC doubling down on her lies. Sandy says, get some psychological help. For crying out loud, if you're not of sound mind and things are weighing more heavily on you than the best interest of the citizens you represent, you need to remove yourself from your position. She did look a little bit kind of like she wasn't on her meds during that video. She looked like somebody to me that, you know, was kind of losing it a little bit, because maybe she's got a little bit too much on her plate. I don't know. But she definitely doesn't look well mentally. And Sandy's probably right. She might need some psychological help. Susan says, but even when she knew it was a Capitol police officer, she spouted her crap rhetoric. She is a drama queen and will spout lies to fulfill herself. Sue says, nobody believes you. It's been reported by fellow congressmen and women that you were not even there in the Capitol. Do everyone a favor and back and spread your stupidity in your own district. It's too little too late. She's already lost all credibility. Madeline says, wow, she wasn't even in the same area, almost 10-minute walk away from where the incident took place. She has been called out by her colleagues and should give up the lie. We can go on, but the fact of the matter is, AOC tried to pull a fast one over us. Nancy Mace, South Carolina Congresswoman, called her out for it, and we finally have the truth. I mean, we all know the Insurrection Act was overplayed to begin with. We know it wasn't anywhere near as violent as the media continues to paint it. We know that there's no reason that National Guards still need to be in Washington, D.C., but they're all there. So Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer can showboat them around and fool the American people. So my plea to all of you is to do your own research. Think before falling into CNN's lies or falling for CNN's lies. And when you hear a Democrat politician say anything, question it. Challenge what's really going on, because they're getting really good at pushing their manipulative narrative, and more people are falling for it, including our own rhinos right here in New York State. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. You've been watching You Made It Political, today where we call out the hypocrisy and the liberal lies of the left, and that's what we do on this show. Somebody's got to keep these sneaky liberals in check, and I'm going to do just that. Thank you so much. I hope you guys had a great week. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Go out and do something fun. Forget this lockdown nonsense. Take off the mask. Go outside. Get some fresh air. Go treat yourself. Have a drink. I don't know, let loose, because it's been a hellish start to the year, and God knows we can all use a little bit of fun in our life. So thank you guys so much. You have a great rest of the week and weekend, and we will see you next week, Monday, right here at 3 o'clock. Good night.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.